helps the best with social media, it's very, very simple. It's a good product. That's really what it is. It wasn't adding more scams. I mean, we didn't do scams, but anything that was misleading or anything that misrepresented us or things that people didn't want to do. But we put out like a LinkedIn deal. People will spread it naturally because they want to. All the social media stuff just accelerates it. And so I think what Immad said is exactly right. Communication stuff are like the best, right? But you know, maybe parallel to that is just building something like Iwan's. Like, why do I share the funny things? Because it's funny and it makes me look good. Or you know, there's probably 5 other things why. But just focus on your product, less about social media, and then people will want to talk about it.
So on the psychology side, we found literally in the last 6 months, because the collective behavior of all you people, not me, you people, is changing because of people like him. Literally now my mother, God bless her soul, wants to share something, and she's English. She never wanted to share anything before. It was none of your effing business what she was doing. Okay? So the psychology that we've really understood, which you got to remember, since eBombs was one of the first sites for people to share content on, we figured out, wait a minute, if we use a social media platform, we should understand what that audience wants. And guess what? People on Facebook, where they're not anonymous, really don't want to share stuff maybe of the ass-tastic gallery. Even though they like ass, they don't want to tell people that they like ass. They like to share, cool, new World War II fighter footage was just uncovered, and yeah, I like history, and I like what America did, and I like this. Yeah, and everybody goes, yeah, you're a good patriot. So it's really, the psychology is that people still will make a fool of themselves a lot of the time, but still, we are, in America at least, we're still very puritanical. We still are embarrassed easily, and so we want stuff that reinforces our moral fiber. And our smart. We're smart, we're sexy, we're strong. That's why I should have AppSumo, because it shows I'm smart. I'm getting a great deal, you know? Why do I use discuss on my blog? I'm smart, because I get those comments, and then I can respond to them and say, shut the F up, you know? So it's really, it's understanding the psychology of basically, you know, we see who the audience is, and you respond to it. And if you're so into yourself, well, fail.
So, you know, there was a couple of questions that I had lined up, and then I had some that just randomly popped in my head, but I'm just going to go in order. Metrics. I did want to ask about that, just because that's something that I think, or do you think, our social media companies or platforms really should be using to measure their success? I mean, that's something that I kind of want you guys to get nitty-gritty about. It's, you know, kind of the recipe and the magic behind it.
We pay for a like, let's say. That like kind of behaves some ways. We can say, okay, 5% of the likes come to the site, and we know how much money we make per page, and we go, okay, that's okay. What we really want to do is we want to keep emailing Facebook with a bunch of suggestions so they can tell us better what our likers are doing. And I don't know if that's going to work. But I like to do that. Another thing that we do is we use the wonderful amount of tools that are available to you. If you're not actually using the tools or looking at the tools, let's say that Discuss offers, that Bitly offers, get off the pipe and really, you know, suck it up. There's so many great free tools. Google's excruciatingly boring, you know, and there's a million people who tell you how to use Google Analytics, but you know what? If you spend the time and do the work, right, there's a ton of information that you can get. And I bet if you even email Noah or me, we'll tell you, oh, you got all this information, maybe you want to synthesize it or ask these questions, come down there. So really dig in there, because there's a lot of free tools that can give you some answer, and communicate. Communicate. I'm emailing Noah later today. because I got a hell of a lot of questions. But seriously, just look around you and don't, it's out there. It's easy. And really don't discount what the tools will show you, you know?
So I think the reason metrics are so important around social media is just because there's actually a lot of avenues that you can explore. So if you think about it kind of like a weird dimensional matrix, there's all the channels like Twitter, Facebook, and even within all of those there's like Facebook wall shares, request notifications, wall shares to someone else's wall, and etc. So there's a lot of channels, and then there's like paid marketing channels. So one is the extent of channels, the other one is the extent of kind of user flows where you can interact with the user and you can prompt them to share something, or you can, whatever, sign up after they see something, after they see a piece of content, etc. And maybe the third one is kind of like coming up with new product feature ideas, which are purely kind of around social media and distribution. So in the world of like almost infinite possibilities, the only way you can really make a decision is by measuring, trying some stuff out, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work, and measuring it. For example, there's lots of facts that you learn. So for example, if you show a tweet, share this on Facebook and a tweet button to users, almost the same amount click on both, but almost 1/10 of the people actually end up sharing on Twitter, and the amount of people that come back is for some reason still almost the same between Facebook and Twitter. That's a fact that we've learned across multiple tests. Obviously the facts change every 6 months as well, so don't believe it too much. Alright, but just measure everything so you can have your own kind of set of facts and enhance what you do based on that.
So one thing that we've recently been thinking about is a lesser emphasis on just page views, uniques, just general Google Analytics type of, who uses Google Analytics for like, so what we found is there's a lot of cool new tools right now to track events, finding out exactly what's being used and not just which pages are being seen. You can start seeing a pretty clear path to how something is valuable to the user by checking every click that they go down to reach that path. I'm trying to think of some examples. Mixpanel is a service that allows you to do that. Kissmetrics is a good one.
Any of the video to Mogul, or any of the video analytics companies?
Yeah, that could do that. But generally, I would say put less emphasis, unless you're literally just running ads, on the page views and uniques, and start looking at the less obvious events that happen on your pages.
So I think there's two different ways of looking at it. So if you're running a business that's small, testing and metrics don't really matter because you're nothing, right? It doesn't matter. Like you have a metric of 1, what do you do with it? Right? It really is insignificant. And so I think in terms of metrics, you basically need to have one metric that runs your business. And there's 2 stages of business. The first one is you're nothing. When you're nothing, the metrics don't matter. Get to something that people want and people want to pay for. And like at AppSumo, we didn't even do metrics or anything for 6 months. It didn't even matter. It was like, all right, do people want this? Cool. Now we're at a point, and this is just for us internally, nothing goes on the site without being tested. So we test everything that goes on the site. Text gets changed, tested. Page load speed, tested. Is that what you should be doing? No. Our metric of success is new sumos. And so we track everything around how that affects new sumos. We do other testing for ourselves. If you're curious, I can share more of that stuff. I think in terms of social media, it's specifically, does metrics matter at that point? And what is the key number one? The problem that I've had previously is I just get excited. Because you work with engineers, you're like, you can track that stuff? I'm like, track it all! David helped out at night with us a little bit, fair amount David helped out at night, and I was like, David, track it. He's like, no. And now the other guys I work with, I'm like, oh man, let's track that. They're like, no. I keep saying no one day. And so now the metrics, what we do is we say, all right, what is the action we're going to do with this metric? We're going to track it, what can we do with that outcome? And then so everything is, and our one metric that matters is new sumos. And so it's basically testing everything we do around how does it affect that metric. So for your businesses, don't worry about it until you get a little larger. When you're larger, one thing that I actually found interesting is, this is really, I use math, which is amazing. You guys should try this. 2 10% changes in your business monthly, 2 separate 10% changes in your business monthly. How much is that an increase in your business at the end of the year? Just 2 10% changes in 1 month, every month for a year. How much do you increase your business at the end of the year? 300%. No, 980%. Just compounding. Stuff's awesome. So you make 2 10% changes in your business every month, or even do 1 a week. That stuff compounds, right? So you make a tiny change every week, it gets better, and it keeps adding more value to what you're doing. And so in terms of our business, focus on one thing and just keep harnessing and focusing and retesting that thing. And make sure you're at a point that it makes sense.
And the other question that I wanted to ask too was content. According to you, what defines great content? Whether it be, no, I do want to focus on social media because that's the theme of the event tonight, but what to you defines great content?
Great content gets lots of views, shares, likes, tweets. Great content is mentioned other places as well. Great content is authentic, and by that I mean it's real, it's not completely manufactured. So to give you a specific example, on Saturdays we like to feature a lot of cat-themed content. Why? Because we found out for some reason people love cats and they view cat videos a lot on Catterday. So why fight it? It's just a challenge to incentivize people to upload even more outrageous cat content. That's what I mean by authenticity. It's listening, being open, and don't fight it. Don't fight. If something's working, don't fight it in the content department.
So we don't really make content, so we're much more about, mobile games. Everyone plays mobile games, so for us it's mostly about surfacing good content. So I think if you're going to be a platform, obviously attaching yourself to something that already has good types of content where a lot of people care about that content is obviously paramount.
Would you use Paramount?
Paramount.
Oh, it works.
I'm going to name my Paramount later.
Paramount.
I think great content is, one type of great content is very divisive. I think that when you can see a headline and know that it's not going to be agreeable to you, you just want to go in there, click on it, and shake your head all the way through. You want to see what the comments say. You want to see, the argument happening. Right now, I'm trying to think of great metrics that we can track. Going back to the last question on how to pick up, a flame war, which would be very interesting. But
you should make flamewars.com, like surface them.
Yeah. Pictures of cats next to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, non-agreeable stuff makes for great content.
And so in terms of what with content? That's one thing I'm kind of wondering.
The site, or
So for like your own business? For doing your own content?
something that I want to know what to you defines, and of all the things that you've seen and everything that's in your expertise, what is it that drives traffic? What is it that is valuable to your site or to you as a user or as a business owner?
Okay. And so I think content is overrated. Then for us, what I found with content is I'll spend 5 hours writing a blog post or some really interesting content, and I'm like, this is really good. Like, when you do something well, you get to like what, 500 million page views a month? What are you guys at? No, but you guys are like ridiculously large, right? So it's like, I'm like, this is the best blog post you will ever read ever, and then like, Hacker News, it got killed, right?
Spend some time on the copy.
The AppSumo copy is, yeah, that content is a type of content, but what I'm saying is that in terms of marketing, so in one part of it, in terms of marketing, creating content is tough because I like doing things that are predictable. And when you create content, it's not predictable unless you do things to guarantee it. So even unless you have a user base, you create content. We actually created content on AppSumo where we spend $50 every email to make it really good. And we've had people pissed off. Like, I think today we talked about women screaming, and we've got a lot of women emailing me saying, don't say that. I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't want them to be offended. And so in terms of content, I think there's ways to make better content. I'm not really in the infographic fan crowd, but that's a really popular one that a lot of people do for marketing. I think the ways to make good content is actually use objective data to make that decision. And how you can do that is you can look at Google Trends, search if this is a hot topic. You can use Twitter Trends or Twitter Hot Topics to see what the latest things that people are talking about are on. You can run Facebook ads around different titles and different things to see what actually stirs up the most controversy, and you can measure it by just the number of clicks, the click rate. Like a buddy of mine, Jesse, he ran quizzes on Facebook, and so he made a quiz about Obama versus somebody else, and he targeted like Christian, like right-wing Christians and like Republicans. And he could see which people got more, what did I want to say, crazy, riled up about it, right? And so he did that to decide what content to be generating. And so I think if you're going to be creating content, like so what we do with AppSumo now, is I focus a little bit, we make educational content because there's nothing else like it, and we spend a lot of money and time, like our action videos. And the second thing is guaranteeing your content's going to work. And so what I do now is I do guest posts. It's kind of a one-off, but I don't write an article unless I go to, like, you know, I'm working with Tim Ferriss now and say, hey Tim, what kind of things does your audience want? And I know. And so I'm like, here's 3 articles that I can write, and it's actually done really, you know, we're going to be on Tim Ferriss soon. We've been on startups. And so what you do is you go to people that already have traffic. Stop trying to, the easiest way to look at it is if you're creating content, stop trying to bring the party to your house. Go deal the cupcakes at other people's houses, right? So if you're creating content, ask them what their audience wants, suggest to them, and then create content for people that already have people that want to read that stuff.
Okay, go.
I'm very conscientious of time, so I'm going to throw the questions to you guys, and feel free to ask anything you want to any of these 4 speakers. Anyone has questions?
Like if they're not a non-programmer, where can they go find a team to start their idea of development?
Which question, who do you want to direct this to?
Who wants to answer this?
I'm calling Noah's 4 guys in Pakistan.
$12 an hour.
Not Argentina? To Kagan, please.
Drink it to
Like, Daniel is a really good engineer, right? Do you still code?
I can still code.
Yeah. It's good. And so with me, I did study CS for 2 years, but I wasn't smart enough. And so I moved to business. Yeah, I tried. I wasn't smart, so I did business. I find that is one of the biggest excuses of people, and it makes me sick. Oh no, I don't know how to program, I can't do this, right? I'm like, well, let me give you someone who can. Oh, but I don't. It's not. You can go on Elance, freelancer.com, odesk.com, and what I did with Facebook apps is I found a guy in the Philippines, and I said, I want you to copy this Facebook app. And one of the apps he copied, he actually used their images. So I got an email, I was like, dude, F you, man. I was like, my bad. And so in the beginning, all you're trying to do is validate the business. And so what I found is in terms of that, all you're doing is spending $60 to $100 to $200 building a prototype, because I guarantee you, if I try to show and convince Daniel to join me, it's much different to be like, oh man, you're gonna do all this work and I'm gonna just be the idea person, versus, hey, I've got something, even though it looks like crap and it functions like crap in the back end, but it works. And once you have a little momentum, like we had a deal that worked, it's much easier to talk to people, to be like, hey, you can see reality and you could join me. And so, but I don't know what the code looks like, don't worry about it. You need to get to the validation that what your ideas are work. And I'd say that's the most important thing. Remove the barriers that are stopping you from succeeding. Because you put that up yourself, not you, but anybody who doesn't have it. Do you have a question or a follow-up?
It's one of the questions I keep getting asked when I email people.
What's that?
How to start a startup without having any techniques or any knowledge in programming.
Well, a quick example would be my friend Boris. He's one of my best friends, and he's an engineer. And so the way engineers think is that they're really smart, and they overthink a lot of things. And so Boris has wanted to do his own startup for about 5 years. And he came with an idea, and his idea was a marketplace for food. So for professionals, single professionals, or in relationships, you could go and say, I want this meal delivered to my door. right? And so what does an engineer do? Right? You build it, you spec it, you get EC2, and then you buy all this stuff, and you go to all these events, and then like 6 months later, you didn't do anything. And so, do you know what we did in a day? Do you know how we validated in a day? We didn't have to build anything. All we had to do was I told Boris, I said, Boris, email 20 of your friends and have them PayPal you $20. That's it. I said, hey friends. We wrote it together. I held Boris's hand. We typed at the same time. He's awesome. I love Boris. And we typed together, and we said, hey friends, this date, we're going to have a dinner. I'm going to bring it to your house. It's catered. Send me $20 to this address if you're interested. You don't have to build anything. You see if people want it, and you have it. And so what ended up happening is 13 out of 20 people paid $20. All right, so there's some validation. And instead of building anything, he just put on Craigslist. He said, hey, caterers, I'm looking for a caterer this night. And I think he emailed some too. And he just had them submit to a Google form. And then he went through the Google form, called them and said, hey, I got 13 times 20, whatever that is. Was it 360? Is there a math person here? 261. Okay. Look at you. So, I don't have my iPad or my iPhone to check it. So anyway, so what we did is that he went to them and he made, whatever, 360, and he subtracted 260? Okay, it's been a long day. I've had like 4 coffees. And so he basically subtracted 50 in profit, said, I'll pay you 200, which is 60 less. And so he paid $200 to the caterer, said, I'll pay you $200, I need you to make enough food for 13 people and deliver it on this date in 3 weeks. Did he have to build anything? No. Did he see that people wanted it? Yes. What he did afterwards is nothing, which sucked. But he made that and it worked and he had those people buy that food. And so you don't even need to build anything to start. But say that worked, you do it a few more times. Look at Craigslist. It was an email list for 6 months. Right? It wasn't a product. It wasn't anything. You don't need, I think you need to remove the barriers that are stopping you from doing that stuff and validate it in the stupidest and simplest way possible.
I've got one quick piece to add to that, if I could, to your question.
Sure, go for it.
So I have 2 projects going right now, and I had no starting capital. And so I just emailed my network of friends through Facebook, and for both projects I was able to find a programmer, two different programmers, 2 designers. One of the designers I'm paying, but he's a friend, he gave them to me half price. So, and everyone else I partnered up with because I didn't have money to get.
That's great.
Yeah.
How'd you convince them?
They just liked my idea, and yeah.
You guys, any of you guys wanted to add to that? Noah's always very comprehensive, I've noticed. Go for it.
I have a question for Daniel, actually. You mentioned homogeneous and heterogeneous communities, and I'm just kind of curious how you came to that conclusion that heterogeneous was more where you think the direction should be going, especially with like HuffPost and different sites adopting Facebook comments. Like, kind of how did you come to that conclusion?
Yeah. I forget what I said, but what I believe is I personally enjoy heterogeneous communities in the sense that I like, even if the functionality is the same across different services, sometimes you have a certain connotation in your mind for a brand. I don't want to do certain things if it's associated with Facebook, just because in my head Facebook is, pictures of people getting drunk and wedding photos. There's a certain thing in my head that it represents, and I like that separation. And that's why I use, for example, Foursquare. I was going to check in. Everyone has, a lot of people use Yelp and they have a check-in feature, but I don't know if anyone uses that. I'm trying to think of your question. So why do I think that heterogeneous communities are the way things are heading?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, like, instead of just, did you come to that conclusion just because of your experience, or are you basing it on some sort of, I don't know, something that you measured or monitored?
Oh, I see, I see. This is something that I personally felt, and that was the way I was presenting it, but also we've been hearing this a lot from I'll talk about Discuss, from the people who have used Discuss or haven't used Discuss and switched to Facebook, and then give us feedback, or have gone back to Discuss and give us feedback. So that's the sort of thing that we've been hearing. They didn't call it heterogeneous communities. I don't even know if that's a thing, I just made that up. But it's the notion of having separate personalities on websites is an important thing that I found. And more than anything, this is something I personally feel I love the idea of I love the idea of an independent web where you have, you know, where anonymity is the basis and not the exception.
Go for it.
What I found using Discuss versus Facebook is that Facebook owns my comments, whereas with Discuss, I more own my comments than Discuss does. And so I make more comments when I'm using Discuss, and now I don't even use Facebook. With Facebook comments, I just go away. I don't use that at all. So I enjoy the feature of having a lot more control over my own comments with Discuss. And I've never seen that in your marketing, and I think you might be able to use that.
Yeah, no, thanks. Thanks for coming.
Anyone else?
Back to the social media thing. Are hashtags, would you consider hashtags being useful? I mean, do you guys use hashtags? I mean, you guys don't probably market yourselves, or you guys have other people market for you, but what do you guys think about hashtags?
If you're tweeting things out, there's no reason not to use them. I mean, it's really hard to go trending on a hashtag, which would be the obvious use for them, but it kind of links together all your tweets. So.
My development team basically threw me out of the room when I suggested that we start allowing hashtags in our comment section. Just get the hell out of here. Twitter's down the road, okay? I'm going back.
There's a guy in the back. Go for it.
Once you come up with an idea that you're like, hey, I want to do this, I want to figure out how to get this done. What is the next action? What is the next step that you take once you have that idea? Do you go and start hacking away trying to develop something? Do you talk to your friends, say, hey, what do you think about this? Do you like try to do some market research, see like, hey, does anyone do this? Has anyone done this before? You know, what do you do after you have that idea? You're like, hey, I like this.
It just depends way too much what the idea is. Like, some ideas can be tested with emailing your friends. Some ideas require like enterprise deals, and you gotta talk to those people.
You should just find out, you know, like what Noah was saying, who your customer is and where they are. There's got to be one of them at least, you know, within 10 miles. Go to their house, talk to them, find out if they would buy what you're trying to sell.
I disagree in one way, which is that if you're making a consumer application and you know how to code and you can make it in a few days or a week even, just make it. I mean, it's hard to get in front of 100,000 people and ask them whether they'd use it, and you only really need 2% of those people to like care about the initial product to then build a business out of that.
Life is short, brutal, and violent for most creatures in the world. So don't waste your time masturbating about an idea. Noah's exactly right. I don't know if you'd go to somebody's house, but seriously, it could change the world. It could, and that's okay, and just be secure in that. But just remember, you got a finite amount of time, and sitting in your room by yourself is not going to help get that idea out of that room.
Noah, did you want to add to that?
I would say, I was just thinking about stuff. I think the best thing is you need to get money. Just get money, right? And what I mean by that is get them to give you their money, right? Prove that they want what you're doing, right? Because it's very easy to say. I mean, so easy. Like, oh yeah, I love what you do. That's a great thing. And if you could build it in a weekend, do it in a weekend. An example with a friend of mine was that he was trying to do calendaring for hair salons, and so I visited him in Canada.
So a buddy of mine, he spent a year building this product, and I basically killed it in a weekend. I'm a horrible person. And so what we did was, he was like, yeah, I got this calendaring app for hair salons and stylists. I was like, all right, let's cold call them right now. And so we started cold calling them, and it's very easy to, I mean, you can really, if you're a student, it's the easiest. I'm a student, right? If you're not a student, you know, I'm doing research.
I'm a student.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't lie. But I would use like interviews, like, okay, can I interview you for our site, and I have questions for you. And basically you ask them things that are their problems, and then you basically, one of the questions I like to ask is like Magic Genie. Like, you need to do two things. Either ask the Magic Genie question, and it's like, hey, if I'm a genie, I can grant you 3 things, what would you want? Or suggest 3 things that you're working on and seeing how critical and invaluable that is for their success. And then basically with the stylus, what we found is no one wanted it. It was really depressing. I mean, it's hard to take that in. And if you really believe, then don't give up and keep going with it. But find out very quickly if people want it or not. People we wanted to approach that would use Mint and talk to them about what their problems were. Was it debt? Was it, you know, they want to make more money, they want to save more, whatever it is.
Yes, I have a question for, I have a question for Noah. So, I haven't heard of AppSumo before, but now I'm interested. And I feel like you have a big personality, and I'm guessing your company has a big personality. My question is, do you have any tips on how to inject personality into a brand and make it work for marketing, or social media, for content, what have you? How do you make that what do you call it, the X factor work for you?
So let me start with a quick story of how I got fired, right? Because that'll show you what's important. For me, this is what I learned. So when I was at Facebook, I did okdork.com, which is like my personal diary, and I wanted to be known. It was really, really important for me that everyone know who Noah was. And what? Knew who Noah? Is it just that's a tongue twister? And so I was really, you know, it was kind of like I used Facebook as a springboard to promote myself. I would write blog posts. I would go to things and represent Facebook, and I loved Facebook more than anything. But I also loved myself and my brand. And then it got taken away from me. Right? I got let go, and basically it was just like taken to the cafe shop on university, and they said, "You're done." I was like, "What?" Right? Took all my stuff, and that was it. And so that was a big lesson where it taught me I'm very unimportant. And what's most important to me is just AppSumo or the business that I'm in. If you make it that successful, like Daniel is invited to speak, not because he's Daniel, but because Daniel's created Discuss. And so I can answer the second part of the question, but I'd say the most important thing is not who you are, but what the product and services you're providing. And then do yourself secondary. So I'd rather have people know AppSumo, and then, trust me, if you do something successful, people want to know who that is, much more than you doing a lot of blog posts or focusing on your own brand. So that was a rude awakening. It was very, very tough on me. But it taught me a lesson, right? To focus on the outside thing, which was Facebook, and then less about me. And so with AppSumo, in terms of personality and culture, I think the beer test is one thing we've done. Right, so we bring on people that are similar to us. I hate when people say stuff that's kind of cliche and generic, but run the business how you've always wanted to run a business. There's a great book, if you want to write it down, it's called Maverick. You can write it down. That's where you write it. No? Okay. It's by Ricardo Semler, and I read that book and I was just very inspired. He also wrote like 7-Day Weekend. And his philosophy was basically let everyone in the company make their own decisions and hire adults. And so I've basically, you keep tuning the culture of your organization to a certain point that you're happy with, and that also reflects the other people that are in the company. So like metrics, it's an important part of the company. Like no one pushes out code or changes things without metrics. In personal development, we give everyone money. That's another part that it's important for me, and I want everyone else to do it. Surprises, so everyone has a budget. Like if you want to go buy cookies for someone, go buy cookies. Right? We buy a lot of cookies. In terms of the X factor, it's hard because you don't. And in terms of what was saying in terms of being authentic, if I send everyone cookies, it's not special. What I like to do is like my stepdad. I notice he doesn't have a monitor on his desk, and so I'm going to send him a monitor. Right? And so I don't know if there's like a formula. You can go read stuff about Zappos, but I think it's making the organization that you really enjoy being in. And frankly, when you have people that are working with you that are really enjoying your company and the purpose of what you're doing, then they're going to reflect that positively. Like think about how many times you've gone to a store and that person sucked. Right? Or you go to the restaurant and that person sucked. Like with Lucy. Every Tuesday I eat at Genzito's in Austin. I tip her 30%. I walk in, she already knows the order. Right? She represents them really well. But think about the places that the person just did, an ASS to you, and you never want to go back there again. And so that's because they're not empowered, and they're not treated well or excited to, clap from the UPS truck. Or like Southwest people. I don't know what you guys like. Almost every Southwest person's always been awesome. You guys feel that way? Is that just me? I feel you, brother. But then United, the people on United are all miserable. Right? If you've flown United, those people hate flying. Right? They hate you. I remember one lady was yelling at this other lady. The stewardess or flight attendant yelled at a passenger for not paying attention to the safety demonstration. I couldn't believe it. I was just like, this is crazy and awesome. But I think that represents how they feel about what they're doing, right? The purpose and also how they're treated within the company. I mean, how do you guys like build your culture, and what do you think that represents? That's a great question. Like within your own organizations.
I really like that concept of everyone being their own CEO. Give them responsibilities, have them know what the task is, what the goals are, but make them high level enough so that the approach is all theirs. That sort of ownership is sort of what makes the appeal of a startup job over, just executing off someone else's ideas.
I mean, I don't know, how did you design that? Like, how did you guys do it? What's good, what's bad?
It's a good question. I'm not sure if we have necessarily the perfect answer. I think there's kind of two parts to culture as I think about it. One is like a slightly kind of abstract level of like, kind of some of the stuff that you guys talked about, making sure people are empowered and, you can go out to drinks with them. I think there's another kind of stronger aspect of culture, which is like whether they work in the same way that you work and whether I think there's lots of personality types and situations that clash. So, for example, if someone loves to like over-engineer things and like really make like really beautiful engineering, and you're a very kind of get out there and see how the user reacts. There's a company out there where those guys would be a perfect kind of cultural fit. But if they work at your company and you're not like that, it's like a disaster both for you and for them. So those kind of like very strong cultural fit things are stuff that I consider more important, in the sense that like if that stuff fails, you're kind of screwed. So that's the stuff that so far I focus on, like really knowing what kind of person and what way they should be working that I expect and that I enjoy working with, and hoping that I make that clear to them and pick the right people that do that.
At Viumbe, which is a Swahili word that means creation, it's pretty simple. Don't confuse activity with progress. And so we like to make progress. And that's progress for the individual and the work that they're doing being fulfilling. It's progress with our products that are going out. It's progress with our sales. It's progress with many milestones. When we chose the name Viumbe to put all these assets that we had acquired, we wanted to create something, the noun, and a creation. And so that's how we keep it simple at Viumbe.
Anyone else?
Yeah, one last thing. How do you keep your idea for this startup from being stolen by the people you go to get money from?
Don't worry about that.
Don't worry about that.
It's not going to happen.
Get a gun.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter. Is that like a scenario that you're in?
No, I'm just curious because, I mean, what's stopping them? What's stopping them if you come to them with a really valuable idea like this or AppSumo, why didn't they just go do it themselves?
There's nothing valuable about the idea.
Hey, do you have any ideas right now?
I'm playing beer.
Yeah, let's talk. No, the thing is, most ideas that you come with, people always think it's dumb. That's what's gonna happen in the beginning. Like people think like you're gonna do this because it's stupid. Like even today, I talked to an investor. I think he's amazing, so I wanted to chat with him. And he's like, "Yeah, your business is stupid." Right? So I think you could worry about it a bit, but I don't know. It sounds like from you guys as well. The experiences I've had is like you can share everything. It's just more the execution around that idea.
Can I answer that question?
Yeah, go wild.
Don't mind,
Is it going to be short or long?
My first company was like your company, College Up. It was called Campus Slash. Basic Craziness pulled the board. Cool. Later, co-founded Cramster.com.
Oh, nice.
And that's a very common belief and worry that entrepreneurs have. And the truth is that people don't even have the balls to their own idea, let alone someone else's idea. And between having the idea and actually making it happen, when Cramster sold to Chegg a few months ago, it was 4 years before we actually even had the money to pay ourselves. people don't want to go through that hell, especially if it's not the right idea and if you don't have the vision. So I wouldn't worry about it so much. Unless it's something that can be done like that, super easy, super quick. You don't have to worry.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have come a long way with Crampster.com. I had like my girlfriend was answering questions on it. I'm like, babe, you're out of college. But yeah, check it. It's very impressive. It's good work.
Anyone else?
We can stick around. So if people have individual questions.
Absolutely. Yeah, take it over.